Paul Romer, the former chief economist at the World Bank, joins me now from New York. He did, Ajay Banga, very competent, extremely well known, but he did consumer products, he's done consumer banking, he's done tech, but he's not done macro policy. Is that a big weakness?
That's okay. You can hire macroeconomists. We're a dime a dozen out here. So he's got some great experience for this job. He knows what it's like to grow up in India. He knows what it's like to operate in the cutting edge financial markets in the world today. I think it's a really inspired choice.
Okay, so let me be blunt here, Paul. You know, the battle that the US faced, of course, was it wants to keep the right to name the traditional duopoly. The IMF goes to Europe, the bank goes to the. It wants to keep it, but it had to come up with a name that would be acceptable to developing countries and less developed countries. They've sort of balanced it quite nicely here, haven't they? Because the Indias of this world can't object.
Yeah, well, they've not only balanced it nicely, but they've selected somebody who's terrific. They didn't have to compromise to do this. And what this shows you is that if you just cast a wide net, there's a lot of very talented people out there. The last round at the IMF, we got stuck like in the movie Casablanca, where we were just rounding up the usual suspects, and then got a candidate who's turned out to be compromised because of problems that everybody knew about at the World Bank before. So we gotta be willing to look broadly and not get stuck with all the usual suspects.
But he's exceptional. But I question, once you move into the world of policy, you're dealing with government, you're dealing with geopolitical. I grant you he's done that at MasterCard, but not to the same extent. You're dealing with shareholders who have national agendas. And I wonder about his ability to navigate the development world as much as all the others.
Yeah, well, he's going to have probably he could have a heightened public visibility and may have to pay a little more attention to communications. But, negotiating with difficult people, you're going to face that in any company you run these days. And listening to the experts, making the right decisions. This is what's involved in running an organization like this. I think he'll do fine.
Right, now let's turn to, since it's a case of while you're here, Doctor, let's turn to what Nouri Roubini was saying at the start of our program. I think you heard what he was saying. I mean, are you a Roubini fan in the sense that you think there's always a germ of truth there, or are you one of those who thinks, well, he was right once, but let's count the number of times otherwise?
I'm a friend of Roubini's. I wouldn't call myself a fan. I think I tend to be a little bit more like your reporter. I'm a little bit more on the optimistic side. I think Nouriel is very consistent on identifying all of the risks. The problem is the world's full of both a lot of problems, but honestly, things have turned out on the economic front remarkably well. We've got a war. We come through a pandemic. There are problems out there. But on the economic side, things, I think everybody has to admit, they've been pleasantly surprised.
So Paul, the core question is not whether there's going to be a recession or not, although that is of certain academic interest, but it really is this question of we've taken the low-hanging fruit of inflation down to 6%. We could probably get it down to 4% with marginal increases on the policy rate.
Oh, Richard, we're below 6 now. I mean, when you look at the trailing average over the last year, it's maybe 6, but the last few months we're well under 6. So between 4 and 5.
All right.
So it's not 2%.
Do you push down to 2?
Well, this is a debate we should be having. Not everybody agrees with me, but I think that it's far from clear that 2% is the right inflation rate. And let's remember, when we came out of the financial crisis, the usual voices like Larry Summers were saying we should be aiming for 4%, 5%. People like Olivier Blanchard at the IMF. It's just not clear that 2% is the right target. And everybody's treating this like a question of the virility right now, how tough they can be about how much pain we want to have. it may not be useful. Everybody concluded after the financial crisis that a 2% target was too low. It left central banks with not enough ammunition to deal with the shock.
Paul, it's great to see you. I'm very grateful. So we'll talk more as we get towards 2% and beyond. Thank you, Paul Romer.